everyone, PushingUpRoses here. I was all ready to do a really professional, nicely formatted review on the new King's Quest game, and then I thought about it. Fuck it, let's do a Roses review. Yep, that's what this is going to be, a completely subjective review sprinkled with some sass and my own unadulterated thoughts and critical assessments on the new King's Quest game. People were absolutely bombarding me with questions about this, and initially I wasn't going to do a video on it, but I played it, I liked it, and I thought, alright. My overall thoughts are going to be positive, but you should still be able to determine whether or not you want to play this game based on what I say about my own experience. I want to preface this by saying that I'm a huge Sierra fan and I adore the old King's Quest games. They're some of my favorite experiences. So I was excited yet apprehensive about a new title coming out because I wanted a new King's Quest game. I just didn't want it to be a steaming pile of shit. Mask of Eternity. Luckily, no turds were to be found. First of all, it's gorgeous.
Ooh.
Beautiful.
I've never seen anything like it.
Serving castle realness.
That is impressive.
Is that a guinea pig?
I don't even know what that is.
The settings basically got my attention within the first 5 minutes of the game. King's Quest is all about those magical looking screens. Remember my reaction to the temple in King's Quest V? It was very akin to that. The prologue can be unintentionally deceptive, and I think this is where people lose their patience or don't give the game a chance. The beginning sequence is an action-based narrative intended to set up the story. It works a bit like Dragon's Lair, and well, I like Dragon's Lair, so I personally enjoyed it. I also like that it explained in more detail Graham's adventure with the dragon from the original game. Why are there so many mattresses in Daventry? Jeez. Anyway, this can mislead a player into thinking it's more of an arcade-style experience, but in reality, there are very few of these action sequences, and when you get to Daventry, a world opens up for you to explore, and it becomes more of a traditional-style adventure game. There are characters to talk to and puzzles to solve that involve finding something for someone who needs it for something, in which you have to help them find something else to make it work, and etc.
Ooh, how much for that candle?
Our everlasting blue flame lantern? The housing's broken. Someone brought it in for repair but never paid.
Tell you what, if you bring us something we can hollow out to house the candle, you can have it for the price of one shiny gold coin.
There are plenty of inventory-style puzzles. In fact, I would say the bulk of the game is based on figuring those out. I never felt overwhelmed during the game, but I did feel challenged. There was even a point where I started clicking every object I had on something else, and I thought, feels like home. While I was playing through the prologue, part of me, like many others, was feeling almost disappointed that this was going to be the style of the game, but once I completed the first chapter, the few and short action sequences made sense to me, and I liked the entire game as a whole. I like the combo of action and adventure, kinda like the Quest for Glory games, though this game still has far, far less action than those. What I'm trying to say here is, for those of you who aren't too keen on the arcade-style portions in the beginning, try to get past them before you assess the entire chapter. Also, for the first part of the series, I found the game impressively long and involved. I put in somewhere around 7 to 8 hours. I like that they didn't go with a point-and-click interface here, though you can use a controller. I ended up using the keyboard for most of the game because it reminded me of moving around Sir Graham in the first game. In fact, I equate this game the most with Quest for the Crown. As I mentioned earlier, I love the visuals. The settings are just stunning, and I wanted to explore all of it. The characters are designed in this really cool, expressive, cel-shaded yet painted style. I'm not entirely sure how to describe it. It's eye candy. And speaking of characters, my god, are they silly. Warning, if you do not like over-the-top silliness, you will not like this game. I repeat, abort if you were annoyed by silly humor. In this chapter, Graham is a teenager, and he is very, very, very excitable.
So, I've just gotta know, what is brewing in that cauldron? Is it a transfiguration elixir? Is it an invincibility potion? If I drink it, will I understand the language of creatures? Will I sprout the wings of an eagle? Or a fly?
Quote one person from the internet, "I wish Graham wasn't such a weenie." He's a teenager. You find me a teenager who doesn't act like a weenie. Yeah, it's true, Graham kind of flounders in this game, but the narrative is supposed to be showing you how Graham overcame his obstacles and worked himself up to the beast he becomes. Not everyone can be like me and just start out a complete badass. The game also highlights the ways Graham became the good guy he is and shows how his character develops morally. There's also a new character introduced to the lore named Gwendolyn, whom Graham is regaling his adventures to. She's pretty much the archetype of every young adventurer.
If I ever come across that dragon, I'll finish him off for you. And I'll be known throughout Daventry as Gwendolyn the Brave.
Gwendolyn is Graham's granddaughter, who will sometimes comment with her own cute brand of snark on his storytelling. It seems like she could have her own story, or at least a bigger role in the upcoming chapters. I think the other characters are also really enjoyable, if not just a tidbit corny. Whisper is probably my favorite. He's a competitor alongside Graham for the chance to become one of King Edward's knights. He's like Johnny Bravo on crack.
Oh yes, that silly feather does look familiar. Look at it. It's like a limp piece of cheese. What you need, Gale, is an upgrade. Like my mane of excellence.
He gets even more absurd and out there as the game goes along, and some may find him annoying, but I found him kinda cute. Look people, I may be a psychobilly goth thing with an obsession with death, but that don't mean I can't like me some goofball humor, okay? I simply adore how emotive the animation is in relation to how the characters act. It's so over the top. I just couldn't help but be really tickled.
So, friend, what's your favorite color? Do you like popcorn-flavored jelly beans? Because I do. What's your availability for sleepovers? Are we in a secret club?
Let's talk about some of the nods and references to the original franchise. As different as the game is, it really brings back some amazing, familiar feelings with the things I took note of, like the silly death scenes complete with really groan-worthy puns.
And that's how I knew the dragon appreciated my good taste.
Grandpa, another pun?
Well, we are just getting started.
Even the little chime sound that triggers when you do something right? Oh man, it's been a while since I've heard a sound like that. I miss that in adventure games. I live for those sound effects. New ringtone acquired. The game often breaks the fourth wall, taking lighthearted potshots at gameplay and tropes from the original series.
The only tool left seemed to be a small hatchet. And no, Gwendolyn, before you start asking me thousands of questions about that hatchet, I did not go around using it on everything.
By the way, I did try to use that hatchet on everything, even Mr. Fancy Cakes, my favorite animal character in anything ever.
Get that blade away from my unicorns! I'm warning you!
Also worth mentioning is the voice acting, which I found fitting. There's an all-star cast of talent in this game, and it shows. The lineup includes Wallace Shawn, Zelda Williams, Tom Kenny, and Christopher Lloyd as Old Man King Graham, who was apparently modeled after Santa Claus. Look at that beard! You can house a family of squirrels in there.
I hope this old cap will be remembered for far more than the action tattered across its brim, sewn into the seams of many hidden adventures.
Truth be told, I had to really get used to Christopher Lloyd as Graham. I couldn't connect it at first, but the more I played, the more I liked him. Alright, enough of that. Let's get critical. I had some issues with the keyboard controls. It sometimes got really tedious controlling Graham with the arrow keys because there's no diagonal. And I'm not sure if this is true for anyone else, but sometimes my spacebar would randomly stop working when the game is blatantly telling me to press the spacebar. Dang it, spacebar, you had one job! Another critical point I want to bring up is the way the death scenes work. Recall King's Quest VII. When you die, you get a chance to start over. That's how this game works. The problem for me is, though this is a convenient way to not have to deal with lost progress, it is a convenience without choice. For example, during this action sequence that consists of puzzles, dialogue, and QuickTime events, you can lose. And no matter how many times you lose, it will keep looping you back to start over. I think I'd at least like the option to stop the sequence and do something else in the game because it can get extremely tiresome, and there's no way to skip cutscenes or dialogue, and that can wear on you quickly if you find yourself having to restart a puzzle over and over again for whatever reason. And speaking of limited choices, you cannot choose when to checkpoint your game. It auto-saves your progress into whatever slot you choose at the beginning, and if you want to choose a different spot to save, you have to exit the game and choose another. Seems harmless enough, but I found I was longing for the option of hitting F5, picking a slot, and continuing. I basically finished the entire game in one slot, and now I cannot go back and revisit parts of the game I really liked, and I really wish I could. I understand the mechanic they were going for, I just really want that option to save and reload. And there are of course the points I made early on about the silly nature of the game and the Dragon's Lair type action sequences, but those aren't exactly critiques I have or share with other people, they're just things I feel others may not enjoy, so for the sake of the review, I wanted to bring them up. The game is quite the departure from the original series in many ways, there's no way I could deny that. But it's not an unwelcome change for me, it's well designed, I feel like the lore is on point despite the tonal differences, and it's now one of my favorite modern adventure games to date. I like silly things, and I found myself laughing at the absurd dialogue trees and goofy characters.
Oh, Mr. Fancy Cakes, you were always my favorite. Other one, well, you keep doing you.
It reminds me of the LucasArts adventure game writing style, which isn't everyone's cup of grog, I know, but I don't dislike it because it's different, I like it because it is. Think about it, Sierra was infamous for always trying to change things up. Writing, graphics, even characterization, they didn't want to make a bunch of the same stuff with the same technology. Hell, the games within the King's Quest series differ greatly. You would never compare the tone of King's Quest IV to King's Quest V, or King's Quest I to King's Quest VI, because they are different in almost all aspects. There are things not to like about the style or the writing depending on your personality, and that is totally valid, but I would encourage people to not compare it to something from the past. I want to assess it for what it is. Being brutally honest for a second, I think sometimes we're blinded by our own nostalgia. We get so worked up by things we loved in the past or as a child, and sometimes it's hard to keep an open mind toward new things. I've been there. I've been one cynical bitch about things in the past due to my own biases. So I just want to say this. Don't worry, your childhood memories are still there, even if you decide you abhor this game. Check it out, here's my King's Quest games, and lo and behold, nobody shat on them. Going back to the silly humor possibly being too silly debate, I'd like to argue that the original games did have their own brand of silliness in case you've forgotten. I mean, guys, King's Quest VI had a talking rotten tomato that likes to harass you.
What are you staring at there, boy? Go away, you rootless thing, you! Yeah!
And do I really have to remind you guys about the time Graham threw a pie at a Yeti to defeat it? Come on now. Quote another person on the internet, "This game is too childish. I'm not a kid." Hello? The entire series is built on fairy tales and fantasy. Remember going to the Three Bears house in King's Quest III and eating their porridge? I'm not trying to say these games are for kids. I'm saying they've always had these innocent elements that people have conveniently forgotten when addressing similar ones in the new game. And yeah, I realize this game has a lot more going on, but I would not describe it as too childish. I would more so describe it as lighthearted and humorous, just like some of the previous titles. But yeah, this is of course just my personal opinion. I was entertained, especially by Mr. Fancy Cakes. You're my favorite, Mr. Fancy Cakes.
Did you eat my retainer again?
Sometimes going down a new path for something old and familiar works, and for me, this just worked. Even though I'm not comparing it directly to the past games, the similarities and connection to the lore are strong enough for me to feel like the rest of the chapters will make fine King's Quest games. At the very least, it made me happy, and that's really more than I can ask for. It's familiar, but it's new. This is my final judgment. It may not be perfect to some, but I think this game is a realistic and genuine attempt at reviving a classic series that is loved by many, and I do look forward to the rest of the game.
Don't you dare touch my unicorns! They're for looking only. No, Mr. Fancy Cakes, you cannot eat his cape! I know. I wish we weren't returning here at this time of year, too. They haven't figured out eye transplants for unicorns yet, Mr. Fancy Cakes. Did you eat my retainer again? Okay, have a nibble of cape. Oh, Mr. Fancy Cakes, you were always my favorite.
Hey y'all, thanks for watching and listening to my video on the new King's Quest game. I hope it is received well, no matter what side of the fence you fall on. If you want to revisit the original games, I have a retrospective up there, linked in the annotation just for you. And yep, yada yada yada, Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, yada yada yada, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.